Hi Sharks, my name is Heather Darris, and I am here to pitch an idea to you about creativity in the classroom. This book, Sparks of Genius, The 13 Tools of Thinking, has truly inspired me to learn and recreate how I teach in the classroom, as well as how I look at creativity for myself, as well as my students. Let me share with you some examples of how I have applied these thinking tools into my classroom through storytelling. A little background information. Over the past semester, I have been working in Creativity CEP 818, and I have been using this book. My topic that I have been applying creativity to, these thinking tools, has been storytelling. So let me give you a couple examples of how I have used thinking tools, the 13 thinking tools, to recreate some views or how I perceive storytelling. One of the thinking tools is perceiving. I use this book, Can I Play Too? And I thought about how I could use a storytelling book that we use all the time, and I thought about it through a different lens, perceiving. And when I looked at this book and thought about it through perceiving, I thought about how this book could be interpreted differently. What I came up with was, it's a story about a snake who wants to play catch. The snake cannot play catch because he does not have any arms. So how I perceived this book and looked at it differently was through this being a book about how I could teach my students about disabilities or students or people who are handicapped. So if I look at it through this way, I'm able to recreate and re-image the story and share with my students a different way to look at a book. If You Give a Mouse a Muffin is a storybook that we read often in first grade. How I recreated or re-imaged storytelling through If You Give a Mouse a Muffin was I incorporated math into it. For patterns, we were currently working on patterns of 5 with tally marks. So what I wanted my students to do was to recreate sentences using only 5 words. So for example, we read the story and they would be very aware of what happens and familiar with the book. So the idea would be for them to look at a page and summarize the story only using 5 words. I really liked this idea. I'm incorporating math into storytelling, and it gives my students a sense of how we can use subjects through each other and incorporate them throughout our learning. Another thing that I did was I used abstracting, one of the tools, and I looked at abstracting through the idea of drawing. In first grade, we use a lot of shapes, and again, I'm reverting back to math. What I did for this activity was I used several stories that we're very familiar with. Are You My Mother? The Rainbow Fish, The Little Blue Truck, and Pete the Cat, just to name a few. And what I did was I redesigned the pictures, the covers, using shapes. I know that students have a hard time feeling comfortable with drawing certain things, and I felt that if we were to redraw and re-look at the covers, it would give the students a better idea of feeling more confident about their own drawing because they know how to draw shapes, as well as kind of take out all the details that we can look at what we really want to focus on a cover or in a storybook, and it gives us a better idea and a better sense of what's happening. What are you thinking about this, Mark? The book that I use that, again, we're very familiar with is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. What I did with Goldilocks and the Three Bears was I applied the thinking tool of modeling and dimensional thinking, and I created a pop-up of a story that is very well known to my students, and I added the 5 story elements of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I created a pop-up so students would have a better sense and understanding of the 5 elements of storytelling: characters, theme, the conflict that's happening, the setting. All of these important features were popping out, and if you look, you'll be able to see an image in just a second. And what I did was, this would be something that's simple for my own students to also create. Another thinking tool that we used throughout the course was embodied thinking. This was a little bit trickier to understand. However, if we think about how our body naturally reacts to something, we have a better sense of understanding embodied thinking. I wanted to show my students embodied thinking by creating a better sense of how our bodies just naturally react to something. For instance, when we're reading a story and we feel emotional for a character, I wanted students to understand that, as well as through when we hear something. So some of the examples I have were how students could listen to a song and understand and see how each other's bodies or how we react emotionally to different things that we hear. I would love to get some feedback from you, Mr. Wonderful. I also like to add that throughout the course, one of the other activities we were talking about was play and imagination. Sometimes I feel that the two of these things go hand in hand, and I really think that if you don't take anything else away from my presentation to you today, that at least you think or reflect about how you use play and imagination within your classroom. I have given my students the opportunity to play with objects. I give them free time as well as give them time to use their own creativity and imagination. And I have seen my students flourish in their learning by doing this. They are very excited. They use their imagination. I let them glue and cut and create different things, and they have truly responded. Um, Overall, I think as teachers, we need to rethink about how we are grading students and assessing them on their creativity. It's important to understand that creativity is not always going to be a grade. However, as we grade students on creativity, we need to look at the effort that they are putting into their work, as well as the ideas that they come up with, given the subject that we are having them create something about. Overall, I truly feel that if the students are seeing us use our creativity and our imagination while we're teaching them, then I also think that that will reflect on our students, and it'll also come back in their work, and they will also be inspired by us to use their creativity and their imagination. Overall, I truly feel that if we start bringing creativity and even just thinking about how we're teaching in the classroom through different lenses, it doesn't necessarily have to be through the 13 Sparks of Genius thinking tools, but if we start thinking about how we are teaching our students and if we show our students how we're creating things and how we're like our process through how we're teaching and how we're going through our own creativity, I truly think that it'll fall back on the students and it'll also help them and build their own creativity. So I hope that you like what I pitched to you, Sharks. I really think that if we view our lessons and our content and everything that we're doing in the classroom through different lenses, we'll be able to truly create new lessons and new content and encourage our students to do the same thing. Thank you.